Yo, 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 welcome back. My name is Imad Jabara, and I help companies scale from seven figures to eight figures through client retention, operations, and sales. Let me ask you, do you hate firing people? Well, guess what? You aren't the only one. This is single handedly one of the hardest things that any entrepreneur or founder can do, or manager. So, today I decided to basically show you guys the SOP that I use that will help you learn how to fire the individual, have the right script, and know exactly how to prepare them for the firing. And this is one of the big things that a lot of people don't realize. When you're firing individuals, the preparation for the firing is sometimes significantly more important than the actual act itself. And what do I mean by that? It's preparing them to understand that they're going to be let go. So, for starters, let's dive in. So, the biggest thing that every department head or manager should know is number one, you have to create KPIs and metrics for your department. All right, because if you can't create KPIs or metrics, then there's no standard for your employees to work towards. And if you don't have the proper expectations and standards, then you can't really fire them because at that point you didn't really give them the right tools to prepare them. And this is kind of why KPIs and metrics are so important, because these are the things that you're using to track their progress and how they're showing up at work and are they actually doing well or not. Number three, no random firing. Put employees on performance improvement plans before firing. That's extremely important. I can't tell you how many times founders we will just automatically fire somebody randomly. And what tends to happen is when you do that, you actually hurt the culture because now you're showing everybody that your employees are expendable. And the last thing that these individuals want to feel is expendable. And if they feel expendable, they won't feel safe. And if they don't feel safe, they're not going to show up to the fullest. And they're going to constantly be worried about you firing them, you letting them go. So when you use people and you like set an example out of them by firing them out of the blue, you actually cause subtle chaos within your company. And what I always say is like the last step is like, I want you to micromanage initially with your employees enough where you trust them in the beginning to build enough trust for them to do the job by themselves. If you don't micromanage initially, then the chances of you firing them increase significantly because at that point you haven't given them the right tools to win. So let's dive into the process itself. Before you fire somebody, it's extremely important to evaluate the situation. Right? What do I mean by that? Understand the why. Okay, before making a decision, go through the employee's performance and behavior and make sure that you have provided clear expectations and goals, given enough feedback and opportunities for improvement, and documented any issues, including specific incidents and performance reviews. So the reason why you want to provide clear expectations and goals is because when you have your employee, you tell them you have to hit these markers. If you don't hit these markers, that means you are not doing your job. That means you are not fit. If you don't give them these markers and you fire them, then basically you just fired an individual that you could have potentially made better or you could have potentially like poured more into. So instead you just kind of like went from your own emotion and decided that they weren't good enough when in reality you just were a bad manager or a bad leader. Give feedback. If somebody messes up, tell them what they did and how they messed up. And the reason why you want to give feedback is because one of my old mentors told me, and I'll never forget this. He said, if you're making new mistakes every single day, then I'm the happiest man alive. But if you're making the same mistakes over and over again, you're going to get fired. And ideally, he gives them three chances. If you make the same mistake three times, you're let go. So here's the thing. If you make a mistake and it was a standard that I already set for you, the first thing is a warning. And in doing so, it could have been an accident. I understand you messed up. You understand, like we both know that might not be your fault. The second time, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna now retrain the skill because this might show me that I didn't do a good job training the skill. So now I have to retrain you the skill so you can understand it better, and then it won't happen again. If it happens a third time, at this point, now I know that you understand the skill. Now I know that you're doing it over again. And what it shows me is now it's a behavioral issue. That means there's something deeper that's happening within you that's making you act this specific way. And as a manager, it's extremely important for me to realize that and see that in you. So it's extremely important to give feedback because feedback helps people improve and it also shows that you genuinely want them to. And sometimes, like I said, the harshest feedback is the best feedback as long as it comes from pure intentions. You can be harsh with individuals as long as they know you actually care about them and you want to see them win. But if you're just being mean to be mean, it doesn't really hit as well as you might think it is. And if they make mistakes, document the issues, include specific incidents, and if their performance review isn't the best, document it because you want to show them proof why you're going to let them go. Okay. Next thing, reach out to leadership. All right. If you're a manager, reach out to potentially your director, reach out to the COO, reach out to the CEO. If there's something that you're not completely sure about, it's always good to talk to colleagues that are at that level with you, because you can kind of use them to bounce off ideas and they can tell you if it's your fault or their fault. So it's extremely important to do that before you actually make any rash decisions, just because you want to be in sync with everybody in your team. Make sure everybody agrees with the decision, and also reach out for support if you need help. It's very, very important. Before you actually do so, after you've already decided, okay, you're ready to fire the person, you want to get rid of them, prepare for the meeting. All right. Plan the termination meeting with care. Prepare what you're going to have to say, keep it short and concise. Have documents ready for them to be offboarded. Let the team know in advance that you're having this conversation, and anticipate possible reactions and have a plan for each. In the moments, sometimes these conversations get very, very emotional, and it might get a little tense. And ideally, what you want to do is you want to stay calm, because if you start reacting to their energy, that puts you in a very dangerous place to say something that you might regret and that might be used against you later on. It's extremely important to be calm, collected, and cool, and ask questions, but also be as direct as possible. And I'm going to kind of go over the script later on today, but dealing with your emotions in this point is so, so, so important, because they're going to do everything to push you, especially if they're feeling some type of way. They're gonna be triggered, and they're gonna project that onto you, and you, being potentially you, might be defensive, and you're gonna then react. So it's extremely important to not react in that moment. Take a step back, take a deep breath, and remember, everything that's coming out of their mouth might not be personal. It's just the way they're feeling. When you're doing the firing meeting, really important things to realize. All right, be direct and to the point. Clearly state that the employment is being terminated and the reasons why. It's extremely important for them to know why, because you're giving them closure. Some people don't. I personally don't like that, because I like telling them exactly what they did wrong so they don't do that again at the next company. Ideally, I want to see them win. I want to see them grow. Also, sometimes if I actually like the individual, I even potentially give him a plan or a blueprint on what he can do next or what she can do next, just to support them. And if we left on good terms, if I feel like they were decent, but they just couldn't do their job specifically, I'll even try to connect them with other connections to get them a job. But that's very, very specific. That's a case by case basis. That's kind of what I do. I like to still maintain relationships unless somebody really did something, went out of their way to hurt us or the company and leaves a bad taste in our mouth. That's when it's kind of it gets salty. We don't actually deal with it like that. Provide documentation and evidence that supports the decision. Don't just fire people because you're feeling emotional or they hurt your feelings. If there are specific things they did, write it down, record the calls, screenshot the text messages, screenshot the documents. You want to have proof because you want to show them what they're doing wrong. And this kind of also goes back into feedback initially, but if they've done it long enough, then you have a whole entire stack of things that you can basically use to make your life a lot easier, because at that point you can tell them, hey, I did everything in my power to help you. You just chose to make this more difficult than it had to be. It's extremely important to also communicate next steps, including final paychecks, information about restoring assets of the company, and any severance or benefit information. This is also very important. This is something that I learned the hard way in one of the first companies I built. I gave my information, or a company gave a lot of information, my sensitive information, without actually having documentation to protect me. And even though nothing happened, as of now, so I don't know yet, it was still a dumb move on our end because we didn't have any place to protect our information. So let's say, God forbid, something did go wrong, it could have ended really, really bad for me. So now we know that if anybody receives sensitive information, there's a specific process they have to go through. They have to return laptops, data, access before they get let go. It's in their contract, and if they don't, then obviously we can sue. So we became very strict about that guideline after learning from that mistake. It's extremely important in this process to show empathy during this process. And what do I mean by that? Handle the meeting with empathy and professionalism. Allow the employee to express their feelings and ask questions. Avoid getting into debates. Don't try to justify yourself. You don't need to validate yourself. And offer support. You know what I mean? Placement services, help them if they got to find a job, just like I said before. Again, remember, care about these individuals. Just because they didn't fit in your company doesn't mean they won't fit somewhere else. And it's put yourself in their shoes, especially if they have a family, especially if there's things going on. Really understand, empathize with them so you can support them on the next journey. It's extremely important to make this very, very clear. And remember, be human. Don't just... just don't be cold. I see so many people kind of get cold in the firing process, and they make it very, very short and sweet, and they just kind of cut the person. And I'm just be better. But that's just my take. I've led many, many teams, and I've learned the hard way through this process. So now, it never gets easy. I'll tell you that much. It's a very, very difficult process, and I'll kind of tell you the script that we use. But yeah, just be supportive. And then the biggest thing is after the meeting, ensure that all exit procedures are followed, including revoking access to the company systems, collecting company intellectual property. It's extremely important to take that away, because what tends to happen is some people will actually save the company's intellectual property, potentially use somewhere else, maybe go to competitors. You never know nowadays. So please, please, please keep everything safe, secure, and locked away. And then reflect on the process to identify any improvements for future termination. That's extremely important when you're firing an individual. So now that you understand the process itself, it's extremely important to follow it exactly like this, because when you follow it like this, you already set the expectations. You're not just firing them randomly, and you break it down step by step, so it makes your job easier. Now you have a whole entire pathway instead of you just kind of winging it, going along with the process. So now in terms of the script, how do you go about it? Okay, when you start the firing process, first thing you should do is, as a manager, is like start off, hey, employee's name. Thank you for meeting with me today at such short notice. This is not going to be an easy conversation, so let's dive in. What you're doing right here is you're softening the blow right here. You're basically setting the expectation that, hey, this is going to be a little bit tough, and just kind of giving them the feeling. This is kind of like framing the call. You're framing what's going to happen on this call. Number two, clarify the purpose of this call. This is now when you're telling them exactly what's going to happen. This is when you're, the opening message is kind of setting them up, and this is when you're telling them. So I want to talk to you about your position with the company. Unfortunately, after careful consideration, we have decided to terminate your employment with us at this company. Okay, now they know that they're getting fired. I like using this terminal or this wording specifically because it gets straight to the point, and I mean, I try to leave it as professional as possible. Then after that, provide the reason. This decision is based on blank, 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 or blank, blank, blank. This could either be a specific reason that they did something wrong, consistent underperformance, breach of company policy, or just not following the company values. That's also very, very important. I've seen so many people get fired because they don't follow the company values. At least for us, it's like your word is your bond. If you tell me you're going to do something, you don't do it consistently many times, you're fired. Like, don't give me your word if you're not going to show up. And after that, despite the feedback and support we provided over the past time, we haven't seen necessary improvements. And this is extremely important to say because it shows that, hey, we tried to help you. We tried to support you, but you still didn't listen and you didn't come to us for answers. So you kind of did this to yourself. Have evidence, show them messages, screenshots, recordings. At this point, show empathy. It's extremely important. I understand this is difficult news to hear, and it's not a decision we made lightly. I want to acknowledge the contributions you've made during this time. You want to show them you still appreciate them and you care about them, even though it might not be the things they were expecting at this moment. And you want to also show them that this was a tough decision. You don't want to seem like you're so happy to get rid of them. Be very, very empathetic in this moment, because this is where a lot of the emotion comes out. Once you've already told them the reason, they're going to try to validate themselves. They're going to try to push back. And this is where you have to stand firm. This is why I say before you fire somebody, be really, really sure you're going to fire them. Like, this has to be something that you've already thought about, and this is the thing that's going to happen. And then after that, it's extremely important to just explain next steps. Here's what happens next. Your final paycheck will be blank, blank, blank. This is good because then they don't have to email you, and then you give them exactly the breakdown of what's going to happen next. What tends to happen is once you fire somebody, they're going to reach out to you with all these questions. So I'd rather just get them all over with during that time. You can tell them if they retain access to all assets that belong to your company. This is where you take away your laptops, computers, codes, drives, whatever it is. You also let them know when their final day is or when they'll be unemployed. Sometimes if you might give them a day or two. Usually it just happens that day and they have to just get rid of everything that day. It all depends on kind of what you want to do. And again, the biggest thing is once you've already done all this stuff, please, I would say try to help them out. If they really were good employees, well, not if they were good employees, you wouldn't have fired them. If they were good people that you feel just were in the wrong seats, then genuinely go out of your way to help them. But if they were assholes and they had attitude, I don't really care at that point. Offer support. We want to help you through this transition. If you'd like, we can offer resources, job placement services, or provide references for your future job search. And again, as you see, I'm using this lingo because I want to be as professional as possible. Have them ask any questions. I understand you might have any questions or concerns. Please feel free to ask the questions. Now, biggest thing is listening and responding. Employee may express emotion, ask for more details, seek clarification. I understand this can be tough. Respond empathetically and provide concise answers without going into excessive detail. Because when you start going into the details, that's where they can potentially poke holes, and then it becomes this debate of who's right, she said, and who's right and who's not. You don't want that, because the more this conversation goes on, the more you put yourself at risk and you become liable for potentially saying something stupid that backfires you. We're here to support you as much as possible during this time. And at the end of it all, Thank you, blank. Let's go through the offboarding documentation. The most important things to remember before we end this video is be direct and clear. Avoid confusion. The employee should understand the decision is final. Don't be wishy-washy and just as soon as you see them start faltering and going back. Number two, show empathy. Acknowledge the difficulty of the situation and offer support. Stay professional. Maintain a respectful and professional tone throughout the conversation. Provide necessary information. You want to show proof of why you're doing this. Because if you just fire them to fire them, it just looks emotional. Ensure the employee knows what to expect, including the final paychecks, their benefits, and any support the company is offering. And last but not least, don't be reactive. If they get emotional, don't retaliate. Remember, they are trying to stir you up. Just listen and acknowledge them. And this is the last and most important thing. Please, for the love of God, don't be emotional. This is where so many people fail. Just support them. Be there, listen, and just be. So I hope this helps. This is the full breakdown of how to go about the firing process. This is going to make your life so much easier. It's been a game changer for me. I teach to every single company I work with. This is all managers have to go through this training before they go through firing, especially new managers. And it's been so helpful. I hope you guys love this video. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe. I'm doing this for all of you guys. The more you subscribe, the more content I can give you guys. Again, I'm super excited. We just hit 50 subscribers. I am so freaking pumped. This is awesome. This has been so much fun to do. I love you all. I appreciate you. If you guys have any questions, please DM me or leave them in the comments. Let me know what you need, or let me know what you want me to do a video on next, and let's get it.